Daytona Beach, Florida, Speed Weeks 2009, Thursday. A day dawning bright with the promise and potential of a new racing season. Daytona International Speedway, teams are ready for action. New pairings, new paint, all part of the tradition of February at Daytona. It's the beginning of a new season for the NASCAR Nationwide Series and the beginning of a busy weekend of competition on ESPN2. Tomorrow it's qualifying, the run for the pole at Daytona, and then Saturday, the season opener, the Camping World 300, the first chance to take a checkered flag this year, followed by our Sports Center at Daytona special presented by Wrangler. Lots of racing action for you coming up this weekend from here at the World Center of Racing. The NASCAR Nationwide Series hits the track at famed Daytona to start the 2009 campaign, and our ESPN exclusive coverage of the NASCAR Nationwide Series season is ready to roll. Inside the ESPN pit studio, welcome Alan Bestwick, Rusty Wallace, Brad Daugherty, and Ray Evernham. We're all jacked up and ready to go. First race of a new year. What's on your mind?
This is as good as it gets. It's been almost 3 months since we've seen these nationwide cars get it on. So here we are at practice. We're going to get to see the freight train line up today. Get ready for Saturday's race. 32,000 horsepower trucking around Daytona International Speedway.
We had to let him get it out of his system so we could move on.
Baby.
There you go.
There they go.
As the cars hit the track, Rusty, final practice, what's on these teams' minds?
Well, Alan, right now it's the last practice before the big race. These guys have got to get their cars handling good. You're going to see qualifying runs out there. You're going to see long race runs. But number one thing they got to do is not crash their main car. If that happens, these guys could be in trouble, and they don't want that to happen.
And 50 cars, 43 spots, 7 guys are going home. How much speed do you take out of your car to get a good handling car for the race? Somebody's going to go home.
And we'll follow that as we go throughout this final practice session. As you see the cars on the racetrack for the first time, there'll be action on the speedway. There'll be action back in the garage area as well. And let's dig right into some of the stories there. Dave Burns, you got the first word.
Well, the first story, Alan, is that it's very different down here this year. With no preseason testing, these guys come to the track for the first time. Drivers, crews, to check out their race cars. Normally they would have come here in January. They would have made a lot of changes to their race cars, implemented those changes before they ever came to this racetrack. So this is the first time they've had a chance to be on the track. Yesterday they had some laps. Today they'll have a final practice. So different is one of the words down here. Different for Clint Boyer, the champion, as well. He won't be in the 2 car this year. He'll be in the 29 car. And a final difference for Clint this morning, he will not practice in this final practice. Last year there were some interesting results for him in that final practice. He will sit this one out. We'll talk more about that later. To Jamie Little.
Well, Dave, there's quite a few drivers going for the championship this year. The newest face, Kyle Busch. You remember back to 2008, he won an unprecedented 10 races, and that was a part-time schedule. So you can imagine the question on his mind, and a lot of people in this garage's mind, is what could Kyle do if he ran a full schedule? Well, we're about to find out. He'll be behind the wheel of the 18 for all 35 races. Now, this team, though, is not guaranteed in the field on Saturday. So yesterday was all about qualifying trim to see where they were at. They said they're happy. Right now in this practice session, it's all about running in the draft, but they're thinking safety, guys. As you well know, it's all about running with people you trust, seeing what your car has, and then putting it away in the garage. That's the plan for now. Let's go upstairs to Dr. Jerry Punch and Dale Jarrett.
Thank you, Jamie, and hello, everyone. You know, DJ, the last couple of years, this final practice session for the NASCAR Nationwide Series cars has been a disaster. As Jamie alluded to, we have seen multi-car crashes last year involving our series champion Carl Edwards and others. Why does that happen?
Well, these guys have to get in a pack to see exactly what's going to happen with their car. And you see right here, last year, this was the final practice session. Clint Boyer got into the back of Mark Green, into Carl Edwards. These things can happen, but you have to get out there in the middle of it, mix it up, and see what your car's going to do as the air gets on different parts of the car. So this is just a chance that you take, but these guys are going to want to get in a pack that they feel really comfortable and not take any chances this morning.
No off-season testing until this week. Most of these drivers had not been back in a car for 2.5 months. How rusty does a driver get?
Well, you do get rusty. You're not sure exactly of the feel of the race car, and of course with no testing, they don't know exactly what their car's going to do because they've got some different things that they're trying here. So this is a great practice session for the guys to get a feel for the race car again and exactly what it's going to do in this draft. And the closing rate with these cars and with this drafting package is something they really have to get used to.
Noticeably absent from us in the booth right now is the third member of our team. Many people say he's the smartest one of the bunch. That's what he tells us. Our Andy Petrie down in the garage here. Andy, what's going on in the garage?
Come on, Doc. You guys are pretty smart, too. Hey, I'm down here in the garage area with Tony Stewart and Lance McGrew. These guys are going to go out there and make a qualifying run with their race setup. They have to make this race on speed, but it's an impound race, so these guys have to start the race with what they qualify with, but they have to make it on time. So they're going to see what they have with their race setup, and if they don't like it, if they don't feel like they're fast enough, they're going to come back in here and make some big changes on this car and try to see if they can go faster. And then they'll have to start the race with more of a qualifying setup. So we're going to be down here. We're going to see what they're doing. We're going to show you how they do this and what changes they make on this car and some other cars down here in the garage area. And then we'll try to tell you why they're doing these things. So back up to you guys for practice, Doc.
Thanks, Andy. Smoke getting buckled up in the car. He is a three-time winner of this race. Won it last year from the pole. The first time that's ever been done in 27 years of February racing here for the NASCAR Nationwide Series. On the racetrack with the draft.
Yeah, these guys are getting after it pretty early here. You see Kyle Busch in the 18 car down on the inside, Carl Edwards up on the high side. Seeing a lot of passing, a lot of swapping back and forth, a little bit of bump. You see David Reagan there in the back of Stephen Wallace. So they're seeing exactly what's going to happen with these cars as they get in. Of course, they're going to be in a bigger pack than this, but this is a pretty good simulation of what they're looking at for tomorrow.
Folks, get accustomed to seeing the 18 car and the 60 car. You're going to see them all year long. Both Kyle Busch and Carl Edwards doing double duty in both series. They're both going to run for the NASCAR Nationwide Series title as well as the NASCAR Sprint Cup Championship.
Only having two of those guys doing that gives a lot of these nationwide regulars a lot of hope that they can be in there and battle with Carl Edwards and Kyle Busch for that championship. So it's shaping up as a very interesting year. See right now the inside lane is the one seems to be making a little bit of a move. They're lined up a little bit better. On board Stephen Wallace's car here. See, he goes to the outside. David Reagan's going to the inside of him.
You see how these cars buffet and move around. Let's establish up front, DJ, the aero package for these nationwide cars quite a bit different than what you see in a Sprint Cup car.
Yeah, this is totally different. Even though you get a lot of drafting effect from both, you can see the fin on top of the roof of these cars. That deflects a lot of air, makes it go around the car, and it actually helps the draft. It makes a bigger hole in the air, and so the drafting effect, the closing rate that you can get from behind is much greater. The guys love this package. It's fun to watch, and they put on a great show with it.
One of the rookie drivers in the 12 car that'll be running this year, and there's a handful of them. Justin Allgaier, who is the ARCA Series champion from 2008. He will be driving for Roger Penske. The first time ever Roger Penske has run a full-time car in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. Allgaier, a lot of potential. People say we could see a win out of this young man early on in the season. Back with more practice in just a moment.
NASCAR Nationwide Series final practice from Daytona brought to you by Nicorette White Ice Mint. Experience a brighter way to quit. Getting ready for the first race of the 2009 NASCAR Nationwide Series season. It's final practice ongoing at Daytona. We've had some drafting on the racetrack. You see the cars lined up on pit road to go out and try and make qualifying runs when the speedway clears up just a little bit. And one thing we're all going to have to deal with throughout this season is a roster, because a lot of these cars, we're going to see one car number with different paint schemes and different drivers in it rotating throughout the year. Why are we going to see that so much this year?
Well, you're going to see 3 or 4 different drivers in a car like Richard Childers' number 29 car, and basically it's all because of sponsorship. They don't have the sponsorship for a solid year, and not a lot of these guys want to sit in one car all the time. They want a little bit of a break, so they're swapping this thing up. But when it comes right down to it, it's all about the owner's points. That's the most important thing. That's what locks you in the race. That's what gives you the parking spots. Pretty well does everything.
And what better way, really, to observe your new talent? You put them in the same car as your veteran drivers with the same crew, so you can really compare, and really judge how well this guy's going to do.
But boy, that's a lot of pressure.
It really is. I mean, some of these young guys, when they have to get in a race car, such as a Stephen Light or someone like that who has to get in the car after Jeff Burton or some of these guys, it makes it really, really difficult. But like Ray says, it gives you a great barometer on where the guy is talent-wise, and also it gives that Cup guy a break because he has to really concentrate on what he's doing Cup-wise because it's a totally different race car. So it gives everybody enough enough time to get in and make this a solid effort.
So we'll keep our rosters handy throughout the year. You keep yours as well. We'll keep Andy Petrie handy because he's watching what's happening in the garage. AP?
Hey, Alan, these guys down here on the 12 car, they're going to try a different carburetor. There's nothing really wrong. They just want to try something to see if it maybe will run a little bit better or draft up in the draft better. So this is just a plan change. They wanted to come down here and try this. They can try them on the dyno, and they said that they're very similar on the dyno, but sometimes that dyno doesn't tell you the truth. So you got to put it on the racetrack and see if it's better. And that's what these guys are doing down here.
All right, Andy, thanks. So the first drafting run for a lot of the cars, go back in, make some adjustments, and then we'll see some people out there trying to make those single car runs as well. Now let's talk championship. Who's going to run for the championship in the Nationwide Series this year? Well, Dave's with one guy who's going to.
We think the 88 car might be a contender for that particular position. We were talking about championship position this year. But one lap on the racetrack, that's not going to go a long way toward the hard-working driver, has a hard job kind of thing. Why only one lap, Brad?
Well, the GoDaddy.com Chevrolet Impala is scary fast. And it just seems like a waste to run it out there and waste it in practice and take a chance with it. It's so good, so strong. So real proud of everyone on the Junior Motorsports team. This is an awesome race car, and we're ready to go race.
Brad, what this year is different about this team or about you or about the equipment or anything that can make you guys a championship contender?
Well, you know, I think we're just getting better over time. We're gelling more as a group, communicating better, just all those things. We keep getting stronger over time. You know, if you look at the Junior Motorsports team, it's only 3 years old or so. So we're competing up against the Childresses and the Gibbs teams that have been here for, you know, over a decade. So we're just getting stronger as a team, and I'm getting more comfortable in my role, and I think that's what you're seeing.
And Doc, a car that's scary fast at Daytona, that could be a really, really good thing.
Pretty special day for Brad Keselowski, by the way. Happy birthday, Brad. He's 25 years of age today. I've got socks that old. And this car here, by the way, the one he talked about, DJ, that's scary fast, qualified on the front row in July and finished 5th.
Yeah, it's nice to have a car like that. And, you know, Brad's exactly right. This race team is not all that old. We kind of forget that sometimes. And also, he didn't mention that, you know, he's not that old and he doesn't have all that much experience. But what we've seen over the last year and a half, it was him becoming a much better race driver and understanding the racing in this series. And I think that's why everyone looks around and says, yeah, you've got Kyle Busch and you have Carl Edwards, but they're going to get a run for their money as far as this championship goes by Brad Keselowski. Really, really impressive young man on the racetrack and off, as you can hear him speak very well.
And we will be able to talk with him during the race, during the pre-race, during NASCAR Countdown, and during the race, as he is our in-race reporter. If you'd like to possibly pose a question for DJ to ask Brad, log on to ESPN.com, keyword ask the driver, and maybe have your question selected. Because Brad will be talking to us, and he would dearly love to be able to talk to us all the way to Victory Lane. We talked about new faces in the garage area, new owners in the garage area, and here is a new car, Kenny Hendrick driving the 42 car, and the owner, well, new to NASCAR but not new to sports pages, Evander Holyfield, the former heavyweight boxing champion, and I guess there's an appeal going on right now over in the Soviet Union. He may get that title back because of a controversial decision at the end of December just a few weeks ago. So Evander Holyfield will be here for qualifying on Friday and for the race on Saturday.
I imagine everybody needs to know that in case any scuffles break out, who you're going to go after and who you're not, right? So good looking race car though.
Here's a 0-1 new car, new team for 2009. Mike Wallace, who ran full-time for Germain Racing last year and had a great run in 2008. Finished 8th overall in the point standings. This is the car that's owned by Johnny Davis. Veteran Ricky Vyers, the crew chief here. Mike hoping right now to be able to make this more than a one-race deal, depending upon sponsorship.
Yeah, and have to get in the race, and if Mike Wallace gets in the race, then he has a chance. He does a phenomenal job at these restrictor plate races. He's a good race driver everywhere, but he just has a really good feel for drafting and getting the most out of his car and getting himself in the right position. So working on some speed right now. We really don't have any drafting going on right now, and you can see Mike Wallace by himself just trying to see exactly how much speed they can get out of this car.
Mike has won at this racetrack in the NASCAR Truck Series. He has won in an ARCA car, and he's also been successful here in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. In fact, his car was the last Ford to win a race here back in 2004.
you see as that car went by, you see the front end up on this car just a little bit. You're trying to get the back down as much as you can to keep it out of the air, but to get as much straightaway speed as you possibly can. And Ray Evernham brought up a good point during our break just a minute ago. These cars are on real springs in the front. They're not on bump stops, and we'll show you some more as we get to these cars, but how they move around, and they're not just locked down in the front end, which makes them for some movement too, but with these springs and as rough as this racetrack is, you see a lot of movement, and as a driver, you have to know where you can go through these bumps and where you can, especially when you get into a drafting situation. So as we get some more of these cars in that type of pack, we'll show you exactly what we mean, but it's an interesting concept, which is the way it's been done for years versus what a lot of the guys are doing now.
Mike Wallace slowing down, headed back to the garage area where they're doing a lot of massaging on these cars, right, Andy?
That's right, Doc. You see these guys on Carl Edwards' car, the 60 car, they're beating the left rear quarter panel out with a hammer and trying to shape it a little bit. The object with these Speedway cars is to try to make these fenders as tight as possible, and that gets the car through the air. But what happens is if you make them too tight, they'll rub like you see here. But they usually get to adjust this in testing. They'll get a couple days down here with the car and primer. They'll be able to test the car, beat the fenders out, take it back to the shop, and then repaint it. And but they didn't have that chance this year, so they're trying to get this car all dialed in for the race and keep that left rear tire from rubbing. And that's just because we didn't get any testing. They're having to do this. Dave?
With Kevin Harvick now, who is done practicing for the day, and we saw you mixing it up out there a little bit. How is your car in the pack?
Our Jimmy John Chevrolet is really good. You know, we're probably not going to qualify where we want to, but we really concentrated on handling. That's where we've gotten beat. The last year's where we got beat was just strictly handling. So I feel really comfortable with the car. It's a little bit loose, and hopefully that's a good thing for tomorrow.
Did not coming here in January change anything with these two practices for you today? Yesterday and today?
Well, I think, you know, we probably practiced a little more than we probably would have if we didn't come in January, but the preparation level is so much better than it has been in the past, just for the fact that you've had a lot more time to work on it. All our cars are prepared through Bristol, and that's something that as a new team 4 or 5 years ago, we weren't able to ever get caught up, and we finally were able to get caught up over the winter. So that's very encouraging as you get going through the year. That's always kind of been where we were a little bit behind. Was like halfway through the year, it seemed like we started to get a little bit further behind and everybody else was making progress. So hopefully that'll get us caught up and be in good shape.
KHI organization growing, driver happy with the car. Jamie?
Well, Dave, a little update on Kyle Busch. Not thrilled with the car. He's actually been back in the garage for about 10 minutes now. He came in and he said he wants rear stability. Now, crew chiefing this car is Joel Weidman. You remember he was there at the end of last season, actually since Dover on, because Jason Ratcliffe, of course, was suspended. This is the final race that Joel will be on this car as a crew chief. He'll go back to engineering duties afterwards. So beginning in California, we'll see Jason Ratcliffe atop the box. But in the meantime, DJ, what exactly is the driver asking for when he says he needs more rear stability?
You know, it's back end of his car is probably just moving around a little more than he likes when you get in the draft. The aero really buffets these cars around, and so he's just wanting a little more security, basically, and being able to turn the steering wheel and know that the back end of the car is not going to fly out from under him. So he's probably just not able to have that steering input in it. So probably going to try to tighten up just a little bit, and actually you can do that a number of different ways. These guys are limited a lot as far as what changes they can make, but there's some things that they can do back there, whether it's track bar or spring rubber or something like that. Probably something that they will be able to take out tomorrow if they need to do that, or on Saturday during the race if they need to.
We already established Kyle Busch will run for the championship in 2009, but he will never forget 2008, where he experienced a record-tying 10-win season.
Second straight win. Oh, Kyle Busch in Mexico City, boys. That's what I'm talking about.
Kyle Busch picks up the 4th win here in 2008. Kyle Busch will be the winner here in Windy City.
There it is. Your winner, Kyle Busch. I love winning. I'll win as long as we can win.
And Rowdy Busch will do it for the 8th time in 2008. Kyle Busch, his 9th win.
Sam Hart's one of the pioneers of this sport.
Number 10. Holy crap.
To be tied with him at 10 wins, I mean, that's something that's pretty spectacular. He's had health issues, and I'm going to go ahead and give him $100,000.
Back at Daytona International Speedway, where Saturday the NASCAR Nationwide Series season kicks off with the Camping World 300, noon Eastern time on ESPN2. Starting with NASCAR Countdown, Tony Stewart has won 3 of the last 6 Daytona Nationwide Series races he has entered. He's in this field this weekend. Focus on Stewart, Kyle Busch, Carl Edwards, everybody else, starting at noon on Saturday with the Camping World 300. It's happened again. Caution, actually red flag out in this practice session at Daytona for a 1-car incident up in turn 3. That is Jason Leffler's damaged 38 car.
Yeah, he's got the car tore pretty bad. Didn't hurt anything in the front of the car, but the back of the car. Now, this is a real crazy looking spin. Nobody behind him. He just gets sideways. We can't hardly tell if he had a right rear tire going down maybe to cause this. Doesn't appear, though.
It looked like it was up, didn't it, when the car turned sideways?
It was kind of odd. Looked like it, got a little bit free getting in, and cars will do that sometimes here. But, I used to work with Kenny Schrader a lot, and Kenny would say, man, I broke something. Traction.
Yeah.
Looked like that's what happened there.
But, here at Daytona, Brad, I mean, you see a guy spin with nobody behind him. I mean, that car had to be really loose to start out with.
It did, Rusty. And, yesterday in practice, we saw a little bit of right side tire wear in these race cars. Not a ton, not a lot, but they were giving up just a little bit on the right side, and so there was a little bit of a traction issue or grip issue. So I don't know if that contributed or not, but got out from under it.
Ray, we heard Kevin Harvick talking about with the no testing how his team had really worked hard on their Speedway cars and the preparation and so on. Now, here's Jason Leffler's team that worked so hard on this car to get it ready for Daytona. Obviously, it was the better of the cars they felt because it was their primary. And now in final practice, there it is.
And what's going to help those guys is they do have a guaranteed spot in the race, so it's probably not as slick or not as good as their other car. But normally in the race here, if you can get in traffic, your car, the body in your car doesn't have to be that perfect, especially with that aero package that the nationwide cars have on them.
One of the goals these drivers are always looking at is trying to get these cars to turn really good, because they tend to lose the front end as the race goes on. So the drivers want to start off as loose as they possibly can. Looks like he was too loose there. Now, another point. This year is the first year these guys have got a new left side tire. They got a little bit softer left-hand side tire. Talked to Goodyear yesterday.
Yeah.
They told me what they're trying to do is give these guys more grip. They learned that from the car tomorrow on the Cup side. So they do have a new left side tire, a little grippier, but still not enough for what just happened.
And that's what we were talking about. That's what I was talking about. The right side tires seem to be a little harder, a little firmer. So they seem to be giving up just a little bit. Nothing major, nothing bad. But like you say, with that left side tire, a lot of grip. Right side, not as much. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Let's find out what the driver thinks happened. Jamie?
And Jason Leffler was looking at the car, went all the way around. Jason, what happened?
I'm just getting into 3, just spun out all by itself. I don't know if it cut a tire or what. So right now, we got a car that's probably can contend for the pole, or we did, and not now. So we'll have to either get our backup out or beat this thing back into shape. It's a shame because the thing was really good.
Do you have any idea how that backup car is going to handle?
No, we really don't. I mean, these guys, they did such a good job preparing this car. I'm sure the backup is in really good shape, but still, this is kind of our baby here, you know what I mean? They put a lot of work into this thing, and shame for the crew and everything. Maybe they can fix it, I don't know. Get Paz and all the guys at the fab shop, and they'll get to beating on it, and maybe we can beat it back in shape and get the Great Clips Toyota back up front.
All right, Doc, because of no testing, they don't know what they have in that backup car, so we're going to follow this story, and we'll update you guys as soon as we know if they'll be able to repair it or bring out the backup.
Jamie, the reason he was so excited about this car, this is the car, DJ, they set on the pole with here in July of 2007 and qualified 3rd here last February. Again, the spin up in turn 3.
Yeah, that's just not... Jason obviously doesn't know what happened, and it's hard to tell there, too. The car just got loose, and he did have a fast race car. They always seem to be right up front here, but this is going to hurt them. If they have to go to that backup, they don't have a lot of time here. Just an hour left in this practice session, and they're going to have to get that going. They're going to have to make a decision pretty quick if they're going to try to get the other car out.
As a driver, what is your preference? You got a proven car that has been really, really good here in the past. Would you opt to have them fix this car, or would you be concerned about something else in the car and want to go to the backup?
Well, to me, it looks like there's too much damage right there to try to get out. They spend a lot of time massaging these cars in the wind tunnel and spend all winter getting these cars ready. And, that's a lot of damage to try to beat back out and get back right, even though they have quite a bit of time before they have to have the car ready tomorrow afternoon for qualifying. But I would have to think that they'll rely on that backup and make the most of that situation.
Well, one driver who knows exactly how Jason Leffler feels having a car that they wanted to run damaged in this this final practice is Carl Edwards, who's standing by with Dave Vernon.
Yeah, we're watching that car go by right now, so you kind of know what he's feeling right now, darn?
Yeah, darn. That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, it's tough. I don't know exactly what happened, but you know, the track is nice and slick. We're all on old tires, and makes it real fun out there until something like that happens. But our Scott's Fusion's pretty good. We kind of pulled in here. We had another 10-lap run planned, and Dan and I looked at each other, and we were trying to debate. You know, we were debating on whether we should go out again, and Jason Hedleski said, we got one wrecked. I said, I think we'll stop.
That'll be it for the day. How's the communication going between you and Dan Stillman? I know he's a real, you know, out of control kind of guy. No, he's real quiet. So how's that going?
Yeah, he's a lunatic. Screaming at me and throwing things. It's crazy, but we're getting a handle on him. You know, we're getting him settled down, and I think it's going to be good eventually.
All right, well, remember, they're going for a championship again this year with a new crew chief for Carl Edwards.
Here's Mike Bliss, not on the racetrack, but being very productive in the garage area, waxing that left side window. A lot of word in the garage area. Here is a guy that a lot of people, including our Andy Petrie, believe is going to be a major factor in this chase for the championship.
Yeah, Doc, I'm down here trying to find some stories on these guys working on their car, and I find Mike Bliss over here. They decided not to go out, and for obvious reasons. You know why he didn't want to go out there and get in one of those wrecks. But he's in here just waxing on his car because he doesn't have anything else to do. He's trying to use up some of that nervous energy. But I talked to him. He said that they've run this car twice here last year. They know what they have. They don't really have anything that they can learn by going out here in this practice session, you know, that would justify risking their car and getting it torn up like we just saw Jason Leffler.
And I guess with tough economic times, the driver has to do a little bit more than just drive the car these days, too. So they're having to get in and do that.
That's right. You got to be multi-talented down here, Dale.
Multitasking. And right now our fastest car is a rookie driver, Michael Annette, the 22-year-old in the 15 car. They're out of Des Moines, Iowa. The former professional hockey player. He played for the Waterloo Blackhawks. Decided to give up hockey because he thought it was just too dangerous, too violent. He started to come stock car racing. And after running in the ARCA Series and Truck Series a year ago, now coming full-time here to the NASCAR Nationwide Series. What a talented list of rookie drivers we have in 2009. You see Annette there, Justin Allgaier. Scott Lagasse was quick yesterday. Eric Darnell coming from the Roush Fenway. Of course, Brendan Gaughan, who formerly ran for Rookie of the Year in the NASCAR Sprint Cup.
Back at Daytona, aerial coverage brought to you by DirecTV. Now get over 130 of your favorite channels in HD. Final practice for the NASCAR Nationwide Series ongoing out on the racetrack. Action resuming after the Jason Leffler spin and crash just a couple of minutes ago. Yeah, I was looking at some stats that our crack staff provided to me earlier. Listen to this. We got 2 guys in this group trying to get into this race in their teens. 7 guys ages 20 to 24. 10 guys ages 25 to 29. There's a little bit of youth out here at this racetrack in the draft. Young driver, you've got a young son out there. How do you mentor him into what to do out here?
You just got to take him and pull the reins back a little bit because these guys really want to get after it. I mean, they've been anticipating getting down here to Daytona to test for a long time now. They didn't get any practice sessions like we've been talking about. No preseason testing. So this is our baby right here. Although the crew chiefs are telling them, look, you got your chance now. Be careful. Don't tear up your cars, guys.
You're exactly right. You have to take the young guys and really talk to them now. You want to build their confidence. You want them to go out. You want them to learn the draft. But the toughest thing is that the veteran guys will not spend a lot of time around the rookies. They just won't do it because they want to go out and get to work. So these rookies and these young guys have to spend a lot of time just learning and applying their craft on this racetrack.
Now you got a rookie, Justin Allgaier in the 12. Yellow stripe on the back bumper. If you're new to NASCAR, signifies he's a rookie driver out there amongst Kyle Busch in the green car. 16 is Greg Biffle behind him. Another rookie, the young kid in the 11 is Scott Lagasse Jr. And these guys are out there in this draft, mixing it up with some of the veterans, hopefully watching and learning.
Yeah, and you're telling them, look, stay in line. Don't move around. Watch these guys. Just stay in line. And I'll tell you, you know, some of the network coverage, the best thing that's happened is covering the practices because these guys tape this. They go in there and watch it. You sit them down and say, now, look, you get, you know, not often do you get to see the whole practice. So tape it, watch it, and discuss it with them.
With a full season in the Nationwide Series under his belt, do we consider Joey Logano still to be a young guy? I guess we do, huh?
Oh, man.
He's going to be a young guy for a long time.
He is.
Like Doc said, I got socks older than him, too. I think.
All right. David, go ahead.
Alan, he's a seasoned young guy. How's that? A seasoned young guy after a full year of competition. Joey, you've had the most laps of practice yesterday of any car. You've had a few today. You're about to make a qualifying run. How's this thing handling for you?
GameStop Toyota is actually pretty good. I'm liking it right now. Compared to the Cup car and the others, I think drives like a Cadillac. So, we'll just we'll see what we can do in our qualifying run. But I know as a race car, we got a pretty good car.
How many times are we going to see you in this car this year?
I got 22 to 24 races. I know I got 20 with GameStop and 2 with Sport Clips. So after that, we're not really sure yet.
All right, so we'll see Joey a lot in this race car. Want to point out his crew chief, Ron Denton, who just walked away. He's right here. Ron is crew chiefing this car this weekend. He will be doing it for the last time as a temporary. Dave Rogers, a regular crew chief, will be back next week at California Speedway. So Ron, a kid who grew up around the Bristol Motor Speedway, has been in this racing business a long time. Get to be a crew chief for the last time on this 20 car for now. Dr. Punch.
Hey, Dave, thank you. And then when Joey Logano steps out of that 20 car, by the way, Brad Coleman and Denny Hamlin will be the other drivers in that car in 2009. Here is the 80 car. You heard Andy Petrie tell you that they have to get in on time and speed. Former driver. In fact, it was Tony Stewart who drove that 20 car to victory from the pole a year ago. Now, DJ, a mock qualifying run for Tony Stewart.
Yeah, he was on the track a while ago trying to make that mock qualifying run whenever Jason Leffler had his problems. And so this is the first lap for Tony right there. It was 50-84. So they're trying to see exactly what they're going to have to do. Are they going to have to give up some of their race package to try to get some more speed to get this car into the show? Obviously, a different number, a different car for Tony. So we'll be keeping up with that and see if they indeed are able to get the speed that they're going to need, because they will have to qualify on time.
They said they wanted to run a 50-30 to be able to feel comfortable, and they have to go back in and massage on that car. Tony's got a pretty good record here at Daytona.
Yeah, he does a great job. He loves racing in the draft, and he really seems to get himself in the right spot a lot, and that's out front whenever it comes down to the time to win the race. That 50-84, he should pick up somewhere around 7 or 8/10 of a second, I would think. So I think they might be a little better off than what they thought if they were trying to run a 50-30 to be happy.
This is the very first NASCAR Nationwide car that Hendrick Motorsports has built since 2007. They've been running the JR Motorsports cars, so they'll bring him back in and we'll find out what they're going to do. Let's go down back to the garage area and visit with Jamie.
Well, Doc, just a little update on the 38 of Jason Leffler. Scott Cipodelli, crew chief right here. This is his first race with the 38 team, and he told me diagnosis actually looking pretty good. He said they are going to repair this car. No need for the backup. He said it's pretty much just cosmetic damage, so they're working on that, pulling some sheet metal off. They're going to tape it up and be back in business, guys, which is good news. As Leffler told us, he thought they'd be in contention for a pole, perhaps.
Jamie, they had such high hopes for that car, and I understand now the crew thought that car not only would be on the pole, but could be a winner on Saturday. Let's go back down to Andy to get an update on Tony Stewart's laps.
Yeah, Doc, I was talking to Lance McGrew before this practice started, and he said that if they did not run a 50-30 or better, that they did not feel comfortable that they could make the field with that time. So that was just right there. It was a little slower than a 50-30, so I expect these guys to come in and make some changes and put this car more in a qualifying type trim. Even though they have to start the race that way, they have to make this race on speed. So they're going to be down here working on this car, and when they do, we'll come back. Back to you, Doc.
Hey, what do they have in their toolbox that they can work on these cars? I know there's not a lot of changes that they can make, but what do you look for them to do?
Well, I think, Dale, they're going to change the weight distribution. They have it more, 50-50 for racing and makes the car handle better. But if you can put weight to the rear of the car, it'll make the car run faster. It makes it drive a little worse and not race as well, but it will make the car run faster, and that's what I expect to see them do, is change that weight distribution. For more on that, let's go to Tim Brewer in our tech garage and see what he can tell us about weight distribution. Tim?
Thanks, Andy. Hey, when NASCAR, when you come down to Daytona Beach, they give you a list of some of the things you can and can't change. They've got limits on weight distribution. You can only run 55% of wedge. They also have rear springs in the car. 400 pounds of spring rate in the car, but you have an option for 430 pounds you can put in the right rear to keep the car turning through the center of the corner. But the front springs in the car, you got mandatory heights there, and weight, the 3,000 pounds, meaning you have to have 3,000 pounds of spring in the front axle of the car. You can run like a 1,800 pound spring, and you can run a 1,200 pound spring, which is pretty common. But 1,500 pounds is the minimum you can run in the right front and left front. So you get yourself in a situation. They pretty pretty much dictate the rear shock absorbers that you can use, like DJ and Ray were talking earlier. You can't run on the bump stops, so you have to run a conventional package of front springs, and you have to also coordinate that with the roll bar. But there again, that right rear spring is really critical because the cars have a tendency to push when you burn the fuel off and get the nose weight in the car. So if you can keep that right rear spring in the car, keep the car turning through the center of the corner, gain momentum off, you're going to have a better run down the straightaway.
Thank you, Tim. Don't you love it? He's got all the parts and pieces down there in our ESPN Craftsman Tech Garage. He can show you exactly what they may do and what it does to the car. Smoke sitting in the car. Gotta wonder what he's thinking about here, trying to get this car in the field. He knows if he can get it in the field, he has a shot to win it on Saturday.
As NASCAR Nationwide Series final practice continues, we remind you that the season opener is Saturday, the Camping World 300 from Daytona. Carl Edwards, Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, Kevin Harvick, Tony Stewart, you name it, they'll all be out there scrambling for 300 miles, looking for the first checkered flag of the season. Coverage starts at noon Eastern Time with NASCAR Countdown, the Camping World 300, Saturday on ESPN2. Dale Earnhardt Jr. having a look around his car, having gone back into the garage after running about 9 laps of practice in this session so far. In fact, a lot of the cars are back in the garage right now, having made a couple of drafting runs, and mostly what we're seeing on the racetrack now are single car runs, those guys having to try and time trial their way into the field. So a quick look at the top of the board. And when you're at a restrictor plate race and you look at a timesheet, you always have to kind of think, okay, where was he in line when he turned that lap?
Or if you got any help. You know, here at Daytona, believe it or not, if there's 3-4 cars on the track, they'll pick everybody's speed up about 1/10 of a second. So I know Rusty's sitting there hoping that was a pretty clean run for Brendan, but you've really got to be careful. I always used to think, well, if I can run in qualifying what we ran in practice, I knew that we did a pretty good time, because when there's more cars on the track, it speeds everybody up just a little bit.
So when you're out practicing at one of these restrictor plate races, Rusty, and we know the time is not necessarily the gauge like it might be at an open engine race, how do you know whether you're good or not? Is it all just you, the driver?
Well, it's all about handling. I mean, if the car feels good, Alan, if it's got a good feel to it and it's sucking up really good in the draft, and the driver's saying, hey, I like the way this thing handles, you'll feel really good. But if you get in the draft when the car just lays out a big number and the driver says, hey, look, it's not handling good, but it's running fast, that's not good. You want your cake and eat it too, man. You want that car, you want that thing to handle good, and you want it to run fast. And so we would just hope that the guys that showed big numbers are happy with their cars right now.
You know what's interesting, though, guys, is all the guys, the veteran guys, are pulling their race cars off the track. They're covering them up, going home. I think this is going to be very, very hard, obviously, on the rookies who are going to be in this race this weekend. They're not getting any experience drafting with these guys in the big packs like we thought we were going to see. This no testing rule has made these guys put their toys away, and it's going to be interesting. Could be some exciting racing.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see.
We know one thing right now, guys. We're at the point right now where these guys are going to start getting these cars in qualifying mode. I think that the drafting practice is going to get quieter right now. A lot of them are there taping them off, blocking them up, getting them for qualifying mode. So I think that's what's happening out there right now.
And as the cars start to line up and wait for an empty space on the racetrack to make that qualifying run with no draft around them, Doc, you do some of the numbers on the number of cars here and so on, and it doesn't quite work for some people.
Going to be tough, Alan. 50 cars here, as you heard Ray Evernham say. 30 are guaranteed by owners finish at the top 30 from 2008. Here are the 20 cars that must get in on time and speed. The provisional for the past champion would go to Greg Biffle, the 2002 champion. If he were to qualify on time and speed, then Joe Nemechek would get in as a former champion and 1992 champion. Look at this list. Kyle Busch, you know, Tony Stewart is there, Rudiman Kenseth. A lot of these guys worried now in the garage area. And here Tony Stewart headed back out. Let's go back down to his garage. Andy?
Yeah, Doc, I was down here talking to Lance McGrew, and they were not all that comfortable with that 50-34 that they ran. So they really want to get out there and do some drafting practice. They haven't had a chance to do that, so they are going to take the car back out there, try to get in a draft, see how the car handles. And he said they know what they need to do to make the car run faster, and that's to put that weight behind the wheels and get some weight on those rear wheels. It's not going to handle well if they have to do that, but they're not going to make that decision until after practice. They're watching all these cars make their single car runs, and whenever they see that 50-34 they ran is safe, they're going to leave the car like it is. But if it's not, if they think it's not fast enough, they're going to make some changes to their car and have to start the race that way.
Yeah, all these races are impound races, DJ. What that means, folks, is that once they qualify, the cars are impounded, covered up. You really can't do anything except just check the air pressure in the tire and a couple little adjustments. As a driver, what can you do? I mean, Kenny Schrader always said I only know one way to hold it wide open.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's what makes these decisions so very difficult in these type races. That when you get an impound here and you have people on different agendas, some that are going to take that chance to not worry about what their car's going to handle like in the race. They just want to get into the race. But you have someone like Tony Stewart, who obviously, if he can get in the race, he's going to have a good chance at winning because of his experience and his knowledge of this. So it makes it very difficult to walk that fine line as to how much speed you're going to get out of your car versus what you're going to give up for your driver when it gets race time.
Here's Joey Logano back out on the racetrack. He's actually slowing down. This is the exact car that won all 3 restrictor plate races in 2008. Tony Stewart won here in Talladega, and Denny Hamlin won with this car in July.
Yeah, and just a gauge for Tony Stewart and him, who ran a 50-34, and they were hoping to run under 50-30. Well, Joey Logano just went out there and made a qualifying type effort, and he ran a 50-18 on his second lap. So they might look at it and say they're not as far off as they thought they might be.
Pretty impressive run in 2008 for that 20 car, 9 wins. 5 of them came with Tony Stewart aboard. Kyle Busch won 1, Logano won 1, and Denny Hamlin, of course, won with that car here in July from back middle of the pack. Back with more of the final practice session for the NASCAR Nationwide Series in a moment.
The Daytona International Speedway, where NASCAR Nationwide Series final practice is ongoing now. A lot of the action, though, happening back in the garage. Some of the drivers have quit practicing for the day so their teams can do a little massaging on things, Dave.
And Alan, an interesting note this year on these race cars is that they're bigger. Now, I'm kind of kidding. They're not really bigger, but when you used to be able to come to Daytona and test, you would make your car in this area, the wheel well area, front and rear, really small, tight to the tires. And during the test, you might find that the tires would bow the wheel well out a little bit, rub against there. And then you take it home and you come back to Daytona and you'd have that all fixed. But because they had to account for the fact that there was no testing, everybody gave everything a little bit more room this year coming down here to this race. So what happened, as in the case of Dave Reagan's car right here, how come they still had wheel well problems? Well, that's because something Rusty alluded to earlier. The left side Goodyear tire flexes more than the old one, and so that's something that, having not tested, they didn't know. And a lot of the teams, including David Reagan, Brad Keselowski, and others, have had the problem where the tire has gotten into the wheel well, and now you see down here that the teams are all working on it, trying to pop that wheel well back out prior to the start of the race.
Now, Dave, another thing, these guys have all been in the wind tunnels, and they can't test on the racetrack because it was called off, as we've been talking about. But in the wind tunnel, they get these quarter panels real narrow, get it so good that the tunnel real good, and they get good drag numbers, which makes the car run fast. But that's one thing you can't test in the wind tunnel, is how much the tires are going to flex. And obviously these tires are flexing a lot and tearing up the quarter panels. And Ray, I'll tell you, we sit in those wind tunnels, massaging those babies to get them right, but there's nothing like the real racetrack.
Well, no, when the car's going around the racetrack, the body's wanting to go to the right, and the tire's holding it, and it's rolling that tire towards the infield, and it's making it bigger, and that's why you really see the left side tires rub more than the right side some days.
And one thing we're hearing a lot this year, this is a new left side tire for these guys, and we're hearing a lot lower air pressures than we heard last year. You know, about 3 pounds lower than I'm hearing across the board. So they're really getting the left sides lower, which hurts the problem more yet.
All right, so while the team's trying to adjust for the changes to the left side tire, and because of the lack of testing, just finding out about that now, let's talk about Andy Petrie and Jason Leffler's team's attempts to rework this race car that got bent up earlier.
Yeah, Alan, you see these guys, they've got a lot of damage on this car, but they really want to fix this one because it's very good. They think it's a lot better than their backup car. And the key thing is there's nothing wrong with the front. Everything that you see, it's all the damage is in the back. I call the front the business end at a Speedway, so all of that looks pretty good. They're going to keep working on this car and get it fixed. I was just talking to Todd Braun. He said he felt like this was the best car here, so they want to get this car fixed. They're going to work on it until they do, and that's why you see them working on it instead of pulling out a backup car. Doc?
Andy, you've been there before, so you know exactly what they're going through. But these guys desperately, as he said, they want to fix this car, DJ, to be able to get this car, as well as it has run at this track over the years, get it back up on the racetrack, and try to get it back out if they can for qualifying or maybe some final laps here as these guys continue to draft. Tony Stewart in the middle of this group. If you'd like to go on to ESPN keyword Ask the Analyst, you may be able to have your question answered by one of our expert announcers. And we have some outstanding experts, and if we don't know the answer, we'll just make it up. No, actually, we do.
See if you can tell the difference. That's exactly right.
Our people are very well informed, so if you'd like to ask a question to our analysts, you can log on and pose one.
Tony's car, he started kind of about fourth in line in this pack, and they wanted to go out and see what their car was like in the draft, and he's running away from the draft part of it, so I guess he might be kind of happy with it. That will allow them maybe to go back and do some things like Andy was talking about and see if they can get a little bit more speed out of it.
Fastest car in this session is the 62 right there. Look at that paint scheme. So it reminds you of the old Rusty Wallace car, the Penske car back in the day. And that is Brendan Gaughan driving for Rusty Wallace. And Brendan will run full-time in 2009 for Rookie of the Year. And he is atop the speed charts, 184.13 miles per hour.
Is it just me? But I mean, I know that Brendan, he's had a lot of success in the Truck Series, almost won the championship there, won a lot of races. He came into the Cup Series and he ran for Rookie of the Year, and now he's a rookie in the Nationwide Series. That doesn't all make sense to me sometimes, but he's going to do a great job for Rusty. I think that's a really good add to their race team because he has a lot of experience, and I think that he'll be very beneficial to them throughout the year.
Now, he's only run one Nationwide race in his career, while the guy in front of him, Scott Lagasse, in the 11 car, ran the final 7 races in 2008. Jamie.
And of course, that makes him eligible to run for Rookie of the Year, as well as Brendan Gaughan, the guy behind him. So Scott Lagasse Jr., what a weekend he's had so far, guys. He has a brand new crew chief in Paul Wolf. We saw Paul on a couple different teams last year, but they were top of the speed charts at the end of practice yesterday. And right now, they sit 4th on the speed charts. I just asked Paul Wolf, he said, we're really happy with this car, and they're actually attributing that to this new left side tire. He said, we went out there 15 laps, the balance remained the same. He said, usually at Daytona, after 10 laps, the balance is off. So right now what they're doing, they're trying to run the car out of fuel. They're running as many laps as possible and taking in that data. Doc?
Jamie, this team was a Chevrolet, talking about the 11 car last year. They are a Toyota here in 2009, and they have an alliance with Joe Gibbs Racing. That may help a little bit, DJ.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we documented that last year that they were going to be making that switch, and right now his car looks very good. And for them to say that his car is comfortable in the draft and it's not going away from him after he puts some laps on the tires, it's going to be very helpful to him whenever he gets into the middle of a pack in the race on Saturday.
This is the final practice session for the NASCAR Nationwide cars. A lot of pressure on these drivers, like Brian Keselowski, this guy, the older brother of Brad. Let's listen in.
How the hell did we do that? To not be taking these screw-ups like this. We're going to have to come in and freaking cool this thing down and everything again. I mean, completely worthless going out there hitting somebody like that. All right, bring her back. I don't know why we can't get that right. I don't know. I pulled right out in front of freaking Herman. Sorry about that. I thought he was back 25.
Well, what they were trying to do is make a mock qualifying run, and you want to get as much open space as you possibly can, and then all on top of that, not mess up someone else. And you spend a lot of time sitting there waiting to let the track get clear to where you can get a good barometer of exactly what you have. And his spotter sent him out there, and it's, as a driver and taking up for the driver here, you have no idea where the cars are on the track, so you're totally relying on your spotter, and they messed up there and cost him a little bit of time. So Brian wasn't too happy about that.
Yeah, the Herminator, by the way, that is the nickname for Kenny Wallace. So you want to get some clean air to be able to know what you got. Right now, Tony Stewart's got clean air with a couple of rookies chasing him down. Back with more final practice.
Don't forget Saturday, the season opener for the NASCAR Nationwide Series, ESPN2, noon Eastern Time, the Camping World 300. From Daytona, 16 different winners in 34 Daytona races. Somebody going to add their name to that list on Saturday, and we will find out starting with NASCAR Countdown at noon Eastern Time on ESPN2. Who's won the most of these races?
I couldn't tell you.
You couldn't?
No.
Come on, it was an easy guess.
Wasn't me.
Dale Earnhardt. There you go. Come on, man. It's Daytona. It's the Nationwide Series. Of course, it's the Intimidator. Final practice ongoing inside the final 30 minutes of this session. We've been watching some guys make drafting runs. We've been watching some guys make single car runs. We've been watching a guy who was in a wreck earlier watch his team try and fix it back up.
They've got some work to do. Andy told us there's not damage in the front. You know, The hard part about that is getting that body exactly right. As long as there's no frame damage and they haven't knocked the rear end or anything crooked, I think they can get the body close.
But do they have enough time to get it as slick as it was? I mean, obviously it's got to be able to cut through the air and maintain its balance. And man, that rear end's tore up pretty bad. Those rear quarter panels.
Well, you know, they might not qualify as good as they wanted to if it's not that slick, but if you look, it's turned around and it's all there, and if it has not knocked that chassis crooked, the car will still be good in the race, because when you put cars on the track, you don't need that extra 5-6 counts of drag. That helps you in qualifying, but, you know, heck, they might even make that thing a little bit better. Like right now, I'd be getting to try to get as much downforce back in it as I could.
Well, Andy, they've got this Braun Racing team is a multi-car effort. Looks like they've got a lot of bodies around there.
Yeah, they got a lot of bodies, Alan, and they have a lot of work to do. They won't get this car back out today. They're going to have to put a whole rear clip on it as far as the sheet metal is concerned. Like I said, the frame is okay. You see them working on just one little spot right here with the frame. It's, you know, where they're trying to just where it's caved in where the lead goes. But they're going to spend a lot of time getting this thing ready and making it right. By the time the race comes around tomorrow, you'll see a whole different looking car. But it's going to take quite a bit of work, guys.
Hey, Andy, I've got a question to you. I mean, the thing I'm confused about is, I mean, yeah, they got a slick car here and it's fast by itself, but this car spun out all by itself, so obviously it's not handling right. I mean, you would think the team wanted to get back on the racetrack with another car, sort out some handling issues, but what they're doing right now is just getting this thing back together, and in my mind, they don't know how this thing's going to handle. Because one thing we do know, it wasn't handling before.
Yeah, Rusty, it is. I mean, they did spin out, looked like to me, like all by itself, so the car's probably pretty loose, and they could use some practice time, no doubt. But they feel really good about this car, and they want to get this car ready for the race, and so they're just going to have to give up the rest of this practice session just so they can get this car fixed.
The one thing that happens in these situations is NASCAR will very frequently work with the race team as far as allowing them extra hours in the garage area to make repairs and things like that. They might allow them in early tomorrow morning to finish up. They'll fairly often work with a race team who's in a situation like this.
They do. They're really good about that. They'll give you normally a proper amount of time to make sure, A, that you can prepare it safely and make it competitive. I'd like Andy to find out for us, though. The one thing I want to know, what they plan on doing with that quarter panel and that body. Doesn't look like they're going to cut it. Are they planning on pulling that stuff with a frame machine? You know, I wonder how they're looking at getting that stuff back into position, you know, template-wise.
A lot of work, that's for sure. Doc?
A lot of work going on in the garage area. You saw a lot of the left rear fenders being beaten out, and the whole rear of the car being replaced. All of it taking place here in the final practice session. Only one car on the racetrack. That is the 41 car of Derek Cope, the 1990 winner of the Daytona 500, and he is scheduled to run the entire season here in the NASCAR Nationwide Series.
He won't have to worry about if he got any help on his lap here as he makes a mock qualifying effort. Nobody else on the racetrack. We have a couple of other cars that are coming down pit road now getting ready to go out. These guys have just, you know, even though they didn't have any preseason testing, they haven't put a lot of laps out here. And of course, a lot of the guys, because you only run the restrictor plate races here at Daytona and Talladega, they just have the cars from last year, and they're relying on what they did in that time. And again, they don't have a lot of things in their toolbox that they can make changes with, so they're just going to go off of changes that they might have made over the winter and be happy with that.
Well, Derek trying to get his car a little bit quicker, but there are some drivers who say we're done for the day, including Stephen Wallace. Dave?
That's right, Doc. And one of the things that you can change if you're a driver or team owner is you can get a different race car. And I understand you kind of picked one up over the offseason that might work pretty well here. Where'd you get it?
Yeah, we did. We bought a car from DEI. It's the car that Martin Truex drove last year. And I really feel like we got a fast US Fidelis Chevy. It thing really drives really good. The car sucks up really good, but most importantly, our car's handling really good. You know, we got a pretty good setup under it. It's you know, real similar to what this car's run in the past with Truex driving it. So it's pretty fast so far, but I'm real excited. We got a new sponsor, US Fidelis. They're all coming in on Friday, I believe, and they'll all be here for the race. So it's definitely been a pretty good start so far.
All right, we wish you luck and hope he does well with that new car. Jamie?
And he has a new teammate in Brendan Gaughan. We've been talking about Brendan in the 62 car. It was the 64 team last year. They're on the top of the speed chart. So I just asked Brendan. You see him there. He's waiting in line. He's actually going to go back out on the track. They made some adjustments. I asked him what exactly it was they were doing. He said, we need to suck up better. We were watching him in the draft, and he said, I just wasn't sucking up as well as I'd like to. And, hey, that's pretty impressive, Doc, because as you mentioned, he's only run one nationwide race. Doesn't know a whole lot about these cars, but, hey, he's getting it figured out today.
Jamie, very excited about what the Rusty Wallace Incorporated team might be able to do for him, not only as a rookie, but maybe winning a race here in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. Those cars waiting to go out, there are 7 of the 50 cars that have not been on the racetrack at all in this final session. Got to wonder what may be going on. Do they know what's going to happen with that left rear tire?
Well, it'll be interesting to see as they go through and into the race on Saturday, but they've taken the opportunity here to say, okay, we're just not going to go out here. We like what we have. We don't want to take any chances. We think that we can get in and have a great race come Saturday.
And here's a car that will not get back on the racetrack. Next time they run will be in qualifying on Friday afternoon.
Looking down on the Nationwide Series garage area at the Daytona International Speedway, our aerial coverage brought to you by DirecTV. If you call yourself a sports fan, you've got to get DirecTV. While we continue in the final moments of the last practice session before qualifying for these Nationwide Series cars, we've heard a term thrown around in the last 20 minutes or so that you always hear at Daytona and Talladega, the races where the restricted engine package is used. It's not necessarily the politest sounding term. The racers call it making their car suck up. It's not trying to get closer to the boss or butter up the owner. It has to do with closing rate in the draft, how your car closes on the car in front of it in the air. And Tim Brewer in our Craftsman Tech Garage can show us some of the tools the teams will work with to try and help their car, I'll say, close better, Tim.
Exactly. Close rate is very important here at Daytona. And what we work with a lot of the cowl areas behind the hood of the car right here at the windshield, where we actually induce air into the air cleaner. Another thing that's really critical, the relationship between the vent tubes in the carburetor and the top of the air cleaner. But what you're going to find out is a little bit of tape on the grill is going to make a lot of difference. But the most important thing, when you're turning a little bit up too many RPMs, NASCAR gives you a little bit of a parameter to work with. You can run a 318 to 1 gear, a 322, or a 325 gear. Those 7 points make it about 100 RPMs different in the performance of the car. But the gear ratio right here, when you're turning a little bit too many RPMs and the car just won't get up to speed, so to speak, you put a little higher gear in it, let it turn a little bit less RPM, and the car's going to run faster, especially when somebody gets behind you, takes the air off the rear spoiler, makes that car really set down and take off, doesn't it, DJ?
Yeah, you're exactly right, Tim. And you know, the gear, to me, was always one thing that you could feel as a driver as you got in the draft, and you could feel if it was really going to make a difference. And sometimes you'd go a little bit too far, and you felt like that you just had to have a little bit more off the corner to be able to get that run that you were looking for. The cowl was always something that was difficult for me as a driver to kind of feel and say, yeah, that was better or a little bit worse. And you have to be really careful there, because in that cowl situation, you can make something that does make you feel better in the draft, but it could hurt your speed as far as getting out there and qualifying. So fine line, and you have to be really careful.
So now we're watching Tony Stewart in the blue car, the 80. He's out there trying to figure out how his car behaves in the draft. He doesn't really have a lot of cars in the group with him. Is he going to be able to tell how his car closes up more than the others?
Well, the thing that helps close up the most is horsepower. and
he's got
Hendrick's
a
got it.
Yeah.
But you know what the guys were talking about, the air changes off the back of the car. As the air's going over a car, it's more turbulent. So that's why we have to play with the cowl, because it's different when you're alone versus when you're in traffic. The other thing that I've seen work, believe it or not, how the air comes in the front of the car and exhausts out the front fender. Sometimes you just get a bunch of air packed underneath the car. So it could well be aerodynamic.
All right, so you got springs, you got gears, you got cowls, shocks. All these mechanical things can help a car suck up or close better in the draft. But you know, one thing as a driver that I found out really helps a lot also. If you got a bad handling car and that car's all bound up in the center of the corner, you're losing too many RPMs in the center of the corner, you get that car handling better, it'll actually suck up in the draft much, much better. So a lot of times, it's nothing wrong mechanically. It's all you just don't have your car set up properly. I found that to happen also.
I'll tell you one of the things I've learned as a car owner in this business. When you take these race cars, as we have previously, not this year, but to the wind tunnel, and you look at them with these deflectors and the spoilers and whatnot, it's amazing how big a hole in the air that front car will knock. It's almost like being on the interstate, folks, behind a tractor trailer, and you pull your car right up behind that tractor trailer. You can ride right there behind that truck, not turning as many RPMs just as fast as that truck can, and that's what these cars do. It is amazing how much air they deflect off that front car.
About 5 minutes left in the practice session as we watch Tony Stewart, Brendan Gaughan, and a few others continue out on the racetrack. Let's swing it back upstairs to Doc. That's my new campaign this year, Doc. We're going to change that terminology to close up.
Close up.
That sounds better, doesn't it, Alan?
Yeah, a little more polite sounded.
Well, you know, history has shown us you can win this race from anywhere in the starting field. Remember, Chad Little came from 42nd back in 1995. Back last summer, Denny Hamlin started 17th, Kevin Harvick 31st in this race 2 years ago. So the cars are different, but drivers make a big difference in the draft. And DJ, what makes one driver a better drafter than another?
Well, that's a tough question, but I think more than anything it's understanding the draft and understanding your particular race car. You know, all of these cars are a little bit different, and so where your car might be better, and just the things we were talking about there, the different cows, the different gears, sometimes the spring, the setup will make your car react differently than someone else's at certain parts of the racetrack. So as a driver, understanding your car and where you can be good with your car, where you can make passes, and then understanding the draft, and without having to look down, getting that feel. And I think that's where Dale Earnhardt was always so good. He understood, he could just feel whenever his car picked up that RPM. And I'm talking about just a little bit. It doesn't take much with these restrictor plates to feel that. So a guy that can do that like Tony Stewart right here, that really has that feel of the race car, that's what makes them a little bit better than some others, is they have just a tremendous feel of the draft and of the understanding of the race car. And you know, to go back to one point that we were making there a while ago about what can make a difference in making these changes, you have to really be careful when you make changes, the number of cars in a draft as you go out here and practice, and also the cars that you're around. Is it a faster group or a little bit slower group? So you really have to be careful and understand all the things that are taking place as you get out there and make changes and trying to make your car better.
Here are changes being made by Pops. His name is actually Tony Uri Sr. He's been massaging these cars for a long time. In fact, he massaged 7 cars for Dale Earnhardt Sr. that won here in Daytona, including 5 wins in a row. Now working on the 88 car for Brad Keselowski, that he will qualify on Friday and race on Saturday. Final minutes of practice, less than 4 minutes of this final practice session remaining, and DJ, clock ticking on these guys. Whoa! Almost got a little rub in there. Rookie driver Scott Legacy on the outside.
A little side draft going on there, and that's the kind of things he's going to do when he gets in the race. We have had quite a bit safer practice there. We've had a couple of instances, but pretty much it. But we haven't seen a lot of drafting. This really going to make the start of the race on Saturday extremely interesting to watch, because we just haven't seen big packs. We didn't see it yesterday in their practice. We saw maybe a little bit more than what we've seen here today, but a lot of these guys aren't going to know exactly what they have until they get in the middle of the race.
Let's visit with one of the race favorites, Kyle Busch. Jamie.
And Kyle Busch, we're talking right now about the offseason, and he did get to run in the offseason, but you've been out of the car today for a little while. What'd you think about the car, Kyle?
The interstate batteries, Toyota's strong. It feels pretty good, definitely. So, you know, we're just lobbying NASCAR now. I mean, the Toyotas are hurt pretty bad here. I can't get above 7,100 RPM, and so we're really struggling there. We either need a gear or our plate back. So kind of a struggle under the hood, but you know, Mark's doing all he can back at the engine shop, and all those boys are. So best we can do is get our car driving the best it can, and we feel like we've done that. We stayed on the same tires the whole practice. I think we ran about 48 laps on them or so, and could still hold it wide open the whole time. So we're pretty confident in our stuff.
All right, well, Kyle Busch says he's confident, Doc, that could be dangerous come Saturday.
Thank you, Jamie. And DJ, what he's referring to is the Toyotas and the new Chevy R07 engine have a smaller plate. They have a 57/64 of an inch plate, and everyone else is a 29/32, so 1/64 of an inch. That big a difference?
Yeah, it can make a difference. You're looking for everything that you can. But you know, I'm impressed. We almost got through 2 practice sessions before the season started, before the politicking started. So, but that's good. And as a driver, that's what you understand all of this. And the gentleman that Kyle was talking to there was Norm Miller of Interstate Batteries. He and his brother Tommy are the ones that started the company and still own and run and manage, and a great friend of the sport and good friend of Joe Gibbs.
Scott Lagasse Jr. just from up the road in St. Augustine doing a great job here for the Mullet brothers. Tony and Brian Mullet, the co-owners of this car. Scott took over back at Dover last September, ran the final 7 races of the year, and he is one of the rookie candidates here for 2009.
Yeah, and he's come here and put a lot of laps. Matter of fact, the most laps. He's 35 laps completed in this practice session. So he's doing exactly what he needs to out there, getting some experience and getting that time as he gets ready to race on Saturday.
Here is Morgan Shepherd, 67 years of age, but basically timeless. He still loves being a part of this sport, 15-time winner, and made the move from Dodge to Chevy here in 09.
Yeah, and he made that move. I was talking to Morgan just Monday night, and he was talking about reasons that he was doing that. He's getting some guys. Tony Stewart and Kevin Harvick are helping. Tony, I think, is helping supply the engines. Harvick is giving him some race cars and helping him along the way, so he's getting a lot of support there, and that was the reason behind changing over to the Chevrolet.
In 1985, Rusty Wallace sat on the pole in his very first NASCAR nationwide race here at Daytona and had a great run in the final laps. He finished 4th. Right on his bumper was Morgan Shepherd. Final minutes of practice, work continuing in the garage area, trying to rebuild the back of the Toyota for Jason Levin.
NASCAR Nationwide Series final practice from Daytona, brought to you by Taco Bell. Think outside the bun.
Here are the speeds from the final practice session. You see Earnhardt Jr. back there in 6th spot, Jason Keller, Greg Biffle. But look, 4 of the top 5 in this final session were rookie drivers. And what does that say to you, DJ, that these rookies are that quick?
Well, they have fast race cars, and that's good, but it also shows me they got out in the draft to try to get some drafting experience for themselves. And what you also saw there, they ran a lot of laps, and I think that's very important to them. That'll really help them when they get into this race on Saturday.
Not only are they fast, they're comfortable now in their cars. We'll see what happens for 300 miles on Saturday. The fastest overall, Brendan Gaughan, with Jamie Little.
And first time out driving for Rusty Wallace, only the 2nd time in a nationwide series. How did you adjust so quickly?
Well, these are just like the old Winston West cars that I drove for a long time, and
a long time ago.
Yes, a very long time ago. But Rusty, you know, he builds great equipment, and you know, the top of the board at Daytona is awesome to look at. I mean, come on, I know Rusty's got to be in the booth right now smiling from ear to ear, but it's Daytona. I mean, you can get that suck-up lap. The good thing is our Chevrolet can do it. I didn't like how it would suck up enough, though. I ran behind Tony there in the end, and I want ECR's working pretty hard to try to find a cowl that gets me to that rear bumper a little bit closer, but I can't complain. I'm top of the board at Daytona, first time here in a Nationwide Series car, and I'm pretty darn happy.
Hey, he's got the gift of gab, kind of like his boss, Rusty, Doc.
Imagine that, a guy that talks fast and gets pretty excited. We'll hear what Rusty has to say along with Brad, Ray, and Alan when we come back to wrap it up from Daytona.
The final practice laps that the NASCAR Nationwide Series drivers will get before Saturday's season opener have been concluded. Now all the work's going to happen back there in the garage area as teams get ready. Check this out just a second ago. That's Red Farmer, the ageless one from the Alabama gang, and his buddy Tony Stewart as Tony walks away from the 80 car. Red's a cool guy, isn't he?
Red is awesome. I think he's still running dirt cars at his age, and he's a racer.
And we don't exactly know what Red's age is.
He won't tell you.
As for Tony Stewart, we talked about him needing to run a 50-30 in a single lap qualifying run to feel comfortable, and Ray 2 laps 50-30, and then they went to some of the drafting practice.
Yeah, they went right back out, so I think that Lance Romance, as we call him, has got the car. I think that he knows that he's close, but they're going to be all right.
So Tony Stewart, one of the guys that has to qualify for the race on time. His team has to think about that as they set their car up for tomorrow afternoon's qualifying session. Let's look ahead to the race, Rusty and Brad, and the guys that are going to run 300 miles.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting, and I still think there's a lot of unknowns with some of these young guys. I think it's going to be interesting. Patience will be the key because the pack will be huge once we start the race. Once it gets spread out, you just have to maintain position. Be calm, be patient, get to the end.
Well, now all our focus shifts to qualifying. These guys need to get a good qualifying lap, but I will tell you that is not the most important thing. You got to have a fast car, but you got to have a good handling car. You can't have either or. So let's hope they got fast and good handling cars. It's going to be exciting watching qualifying, but be some sleepless people tonight going to bed if they're not handling good.
Of course, later today here at Daytona on the track, the Gatorade 150s to set the starting field for the Daytona 500. Full report on that on NASCAR Now tonight at 6 Eastern Time, including visits from the race winners. Then tomorrow, it's Nationwide Series qualifying, 3 Eastern Time here on ESPN2, followed by NASCAR Now with a complete wrap-up on all the day's action here at Speed Weeks 2009. Saturday, our NASCAR Countdown kicks things off. The NASCAR Nationwide Series Camping World 300 at Daytona, noon Eastern Time on Saturday, followed immediately by our Sports Center at Daytona, presented by Wrangler Special, previewing the Daytona 500. Up next, ESPN First Take, presented by DirecTV. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports.